Here we go. You are listening to episode 19 of the Tool Bags Up Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Sebastian Caballero. And today is a very exciting show. Not only are we recording, but we are also videotaping today. There will be a video up on our YouTube channel for you guys to go ahead and watch. As you guys know, today we are going over the Tool Bags Up MLB Greatest Player of All Time bracket. The bracket that you guys put together by submitting your list, submitting your votes of who the greatest players of all time were. And let's check out the results. Receiving the most votes, and he was actually a unanimous decision, is Barry Bonds. Hank Aaron came in at number 2, followed by Ken Griffey, Mike Trout number 4, Babe Ruth 5, Ted Williams 6, Willie Mays 7th, Pete Rose 8, Alex Rodriguez 9, Mickey Mantle came in at number 10, Ty Cobb at number 11, Cal Ripken Jr. at number 12, Derek Jeter number 13, Albert Pujols 14, Lou Gehrig 15, and Mr. Irrelevant, the 16th seed, Miguel Cabrera. Now, if you're trying to figure out how we're going to eliminate 15 of these legends, well, just wait until you see some of these matchups. Let's see the round of 16. The first matchup is between the number 1 seed, Barry Bonds, and the number 16 seed, Miguel Cabrera. The second matchup is between the 8 and 9 seeds. That is the Hit King Pete Rose, number 8, and Alex Rodriguez, number 9. The next matchup are a couple of fan favorites. It's number 4, Mike Trout, and number 13, the captain, Derek Jeter. The 5-12 matchup, usually an upset in March Madness. I don't think we'll have that here. It is Babe Ruth up against the Iron Man, Cal Ripken Jr. On the other side of the bracket, we'll start off with the 2-15 matchup. The second seed is Hammer and Hank Aaron, up against the Iron Horse, Lou Gehrig. We have the Battle of New York with the 7 and 10 matchup. It is the Say Hey Kid, Willie Mays, and Mickey, Don't Call Me Mouse, Mantle. LOL. The 3 versus 14 seed, this is my upset. It is the number 3 seed, Ken Griffey Jr., up against the Machine, Albert Pujols. And the final matchup in the round of 16, it is the 6 seed, Ted Williams, against the 11 seed, the man they call the Georgia Peach, Ty Cobb. Let's take a look at that bracket. As you can see, we are ready to roll. So what we're going to do here is that I am going to break down the bracket. I'm going to give you my selections, and I'm going to tell you why. Let's get going. So the first matchup is between the number 1 seed, Barry Bonds, and Miguel Cabrera. Now, I know what you're thinking. This isn't even close, but let's just compare the two for a second. Miguel Cabrera is a 2-time MVP. He is a Triple Crown winner. And for about a stretch of 5 years there, he was clearly, hands down, the best hitter in baseball. You cannot pitch to the guy. Now, the problem is, Barry was that guy for his entire career. He was the most feared hitter of all time. He's got him beat in statistics and accolades. I mean, Barry basically has him beat in every single category, but don't fool yourself, okay? Miguel Cabrera is a first ballot Hall of Famer. He will be one of few players to have 3,000 hits for his career and 500 home runs. Not to mention, he was the first player in over 60 years to win a Triple Crown, something that Barry Bonds did not do. Unfortunately, Barry's moving on. Let's move on to the 8 and 9 matchup. This one to me might hurt a little bit because I know not very many people are fans of Alex Rodriguez, but he is clearly the better player here, right? Like, we're trying to find out who the greatest baseball player of all time is, and A-Rod was far greater. 3 MVPs, almost 700 home runs, over 2,000 RBIs, 3,000 hits. Really, the only argument that you can make for Pete Rose is that he's the all-time hits leader. But other than that, it's not like he was a stellar defender. It's not like he was this great power hitter. You know, he was just the all-time hit king. And I think that just that matchup here between A-Rod was a 5-tool player through and through. Pete Rose, Charlie Hustle, sorry, bud. You're going home. A-Rod, you're going on to the Elite Eight. Let's go down to the 4-13 matchup. That is Mike Trout against Derek Jeter. Now, this one is going to hurt some people, right? Because everybody loves Jeter, who probably shouldn't be in this list. And everybody's a fan of Mike Trout. Some people assume that Mike Trout will end up being the greatest baseball player of all time. I have to even admit that he's definitely on track for that. But as a couple of other players in this bracket will show, just because the start of your career is great doesn't mean it's going to end that way. Long story short, Mike Trout advances here. 3 MVPs to Jeter's 0. Where I will give Jeter credit here. I'm not going to compare the stats because Trout just blows him out of the water. Where Jeter does get some points in my book, his dating history, which I wrote down there on the notes. I mean, Jessica Alba, Jessica Biel, Vita Guerra, Tyra Banks, you name it. He deserves to be in the GOAT conversation. I'll give him that. But no match for Mike Trout here. Mike Trout moves on. Next is the 5-12 matchup. That is the Babe, the Colossus, the Clout, up against the Iron Man. This one's easy. Babe Ruth was at his time one of the best pitchers in the league and the best hitter in the league. Cal Ripken, probably the best offensive shortstop if you don't include A-Rod in the game. But he is no match for the Babe. The Babe moves on. On to the other side of the bracket, we have Hammer and Hank Aaron, the 2 seed, up against Lou Gehrig, the number 15 seed. Now, this one's obviously tough because Gehrig should probably be ranked higher than 15, but it's a little tough for him to beat the former home run king. 755 home runs for Hank Aaron, over 2,000 RBIs. Don't kid yourself, Lou Gehrig, after Babe Ruth, he was the best player on the New York Yankees. He's a Yankee legend, but no way he's edging out Hank Aaron. Hank Aaron moves on. To the 7-10 matchup, we got Willie Mays against Mickey Mantle. Now, this one's, I feel bad for Mickey because he is the greatest switch hitter of all time, but there's no comparison. Mickey did it on the offensive side, and he maybe would have won a couple more Gold Gloves, if Mays wasn't in the league, right? So, Mays, 660 home runs, 12 Gold Gloves. Just an absolute legend. 302 batting average. He's got him in awards. He's got him in accolades. He's got him in statistics. Willie Mays moves on. The 3-14 matchup, this is the one that I was waiting for. This is the one between Ken Griffey Jr. and Albert Pujols. Now, before you go ahead and vote for Ken Griffey Jr., I need you to compare their careers because many people are just looking at the last 10 years of Albert Pujols, which is funny. Because if you look at the second half of Ken Griffey's career, it's worse than what Pujols is right now. Granted, Ken Griffey was a better defensive player. Pujols was still a Gold Glove caliber player. He did win a couple Gold Gloves. But Griffey edges him out on defense. Offensively, Pujols had the greatest offensive start to any career and any player in history. He had 10 consecutive seasons hitting 300, 30 home runs, and 100 RBIs. This guy is a top 5 hitter of all time. And literally the only reason why he might get knocked out of the GOAT conversation is just because of his tenure with the Angels. But Albert Pujols is one of the top 5 greatest players all around of all time. And it's sad that the younger generation just sees him as this designated hitter that can't really do anything but hit the ball. On to the final matchup of the round of 16. It is the number 6 seed Ted Williams against the guy they call the Georgia Peach, Ty Cobb. Now, this matchup, I understand that Ty Cobb had over 4,000 hits. You can't discredit what Ted Williams is able to do in his career, especially after he left in his prime to go fight in the fucking war. Okay, Ted Williams still hit over 500 home runs. He still drew, and this is probably my favorite stat, okay, drew over 2,000 walks. He was one of 4 players to do that. And he's the all-time leader in on-base percentage. You already know how important that stat is for me. Ty Cobb played at an easier era. I'm going to stop explaining it. Ted Williams was the better player. He is the better hitter, and he is moving on to the Elite 8. So as we take a look here at the bracket and where we are, as you can see, the eliminations have been made. And now it's on to the Elite 8. Our first matchup, and this one hurts a little bit, is between two of my favorite players, Barry Bonds and Alex Rodriguez. Now, part of me wants to vote A-Rod because I feel like he was more consistent during his career, right? Like, he was really, really good from the beginning and really, really good until the end, all right? So, he was hitting 36 home runs at 20 years old. A-Rod was arguably the best player to play the shortstop position. He wasn't the greatest shortstop of all time, right? Because he didn't play there his entire career. But he is the greatest player to play the shortstop position. Like, if you're making an all-time team, A-Rod should be your shortstop. 3 MVPs, 694 home runs, over 3,000 hits, over 2,000 RBIs. The only reason why he's exiting so early is because of this matchup here. But Barry's just an animal, man. I mean, again, he's the most feared hitter of all time, the toughest out in the history of Major League Baseball. Barry, 7 MVPs. No other player has more than 3. And he's the only member of the 500-500 club, which is at least 500 home runs for his career and at least 500 stolen bases for his career. On to the next matchup. This next matchup is new school versus old school. And this one might piss some people off. It pisses me off. Because as great and as legendary as Babe Ruth is and as great as his statistics were, I'm going with Mike Trout. What Mike Trout has been able to do at the start of his career in today's game is unreal. I can only imagine what he would do in the league back in those days. Like, you could make the argument like, yeah, okay, well, Babe Ruth was great in that day, and then, eventually somebody will look back at today's game and be like, well, they played in an easier era. That's not where I'm getting at. I'm talking about the athlete type that Mike Trout is. In Babe Ruth's era, would completely dominate, and more so than Babe Ruth. You put Babe Ruth in this era, you can give him as much training as you want, but the athlete that he was would not succeed here. Mike Trout is on pace to seriously be the greatest player of all time. Again, he still has more than half of his career. It could go either way, but as of right now, I would have to take Mike Trout over Babe Ruth. Not to mention, part of my job right now is to give you my predictions. And I got guys like Justin Baranici that see Mike Trout as the greatest player of all time already. So I have a feeling that the kids are going to vote Trout. So I'm going Trout as well. This next one, shit, man. I feel bad for whoever I let go. And you guys might be shocked at the guy that I'm letting go, because I'm letting go of Hank Aaron. Yes. Hammerin' Hank is going home. And for the simple fact that Willie Mays was just more a complete player. You can't discount the 12 gold gloves. You just can't do it. Okay? He was a better defender. The gap between them defensively is huge. Offensively, Aaron was a better player. He was a better hitter. But the gap wasn't as big. And not to mention that Willie Mays was actually a better base runner than Hank Aaron. I just think The gap on defense is what separates the two. I'm going Willie Mays on to the Final Four. Next matchup is between Albert Pujols, the Machine, and Ted Williams. This one also kind of hurts, but I got to send him home. Pujols is going home, and this one's a little tricky. So, again, another close matchup here. But here's where it hurts Pujols. Here's where that second half of his career is going to hurt him because he has statistically better numbers. Again, he is probably the best right-handed hitter of all time. But it sucks. This one sucks. But just that second half, you can't just have 11 great years and then fall off the way that he did. He beat Griffey because Griffey also fell off, and he had better numbers and better accolades and all that stuff. So, but here, Ted Williams was consistent from the time he got in the league to the time that he left, and I just got to give it to him. Ted Williams on to the Final Four. So here is what our bracket looks like now. Down to the last four, it's Barry Bonds against Mike Trout, and on the other side, it's Willie Mays against Ted Williams. Let's start digging into this Final Four. And this is probably the toughest matchup for Barry Bonds because, again, the kids love Trout. The kids want Trout. But there's no way that Mike Trout, who has yet to play his entire career, is going to get voted over the most feared hitter of all time. Again, guys, 762 home runs. What was it? 1,900, almost 2,000 RBIs. He drew, and this is the wildest. This is what Mike Trout will never do. He is the most walked hitter of all time, right? The most feared hitter of all time. He had 1,500. Put that in your head. 1,500 more walks than he had strikeouts in his career. In 2004, he had a 609 on base percentage. No one in the history of baseball has done that. Not in the 1800s, not in the early 1900s, not ever. 600 on base percentage for Barry Bonds at 39 years old. Mike Trout is feared, but nowhere near the way that Barry Bonds was feared. Barry Bonds on to the finals. And on the other side, we have Willie Mays up against Ted Williams. Teddy, again, my favorite player from the Stone Age, but you cannot discount the greatness of Willie Mays. He was a complete player. Again, he's got him in statistics. It's almost wrong to hold statistics against Ted Williams because, again, he left during his prime to go fight in a fucking war. But Willie Mays, just way more consistent. Great defensive player, 5'2" guy, member of the 300 club. I got to put him over Ted Williams slightly into the final round. And lastly, here we go, the final round. Let's look at our bracket now. Man, it's almost insulting eliminating these guys, but we got to do what we got to do. And now we have the final. So for the final, you more or less know where I'm going with this. I think if Willie Mays and Barry Bonds had to lose to anyone, if they knew that this was going on, if they could lose to anyone, it would be to each other, right? So the loser in this will be happy for the winner, theoretically. Let's compare the two. So Willie Mays had 660 home runs, 1,900 RBIs, hit .302 for his career, a stat that he holds over Bonds. Higher batting average. He did attain more gold gloves, 12, than Barry Bonds, 8. And he was also selected to more All-Star games. If you haven't noticed, one of the things I did not put up on their bios was All-Star games because half of these guys, like 3 of these guys, played in an era where there weren't any All-Star games. I think Babe Ruth was only selected to about 2 of them. So, not really fair to count that against them. But in this scenario, I can bring that up. 24 All-Star games Willie Mays was selected to Barry Bonds' 14. that's pretty remarkable. He had a remarkable career. There was a point in time where I thought Willie Mays was the greatest player of all time. And then I realized how dumb that was, because there was another guy who won 7 MVPs, 4 consecutive MVPs in his late 30s. He is the single season home run record king with 73 home runs, the all-time home run king with 762. And again, to me, just the stat that just stands out to me is the walks, right? Like, it's not even the fact that he's the only player ever to hit at least 500 home runs and 500 stolen bases. No, it's the fact that he got walked 1,500 times more than he struck out. That is insane. That will never happen again. Never. You have guys like Greg Maddux, greatest pitchers of all time, that will just tell you, I just wouldn't want to pitch to the guy, because he was just that much better than every other hitter out there. And I know that, like, hitting is the most talked about thing about Barry Bonds, but he won 8 Gold Gloves. What other guy hits that well? Not even Hank Aaron. He won Gold Gloves. He didn't win 8. So Barry just had it all. He was the complete player, steroids or not. You cannot take that away. Nobody else that has taken steroids has even come close to accomplishing what Barry Bonds has done. And that's what separates him. This is why he belongs in the Hall of Fame. This is why he is the greatest baseball player of all time. You have it there. That is my bracket. We will see what the people say. I don't think I voted with the people. I tried to. I did it with Trout once. But I don't know. I think people are going to jump on the Ken Griffey bandwagon. I think Ty Cobb might pull up an upset. We'll see. We'll see what happens here. But that is my bracket. Hopefully, you guys fill out your brackets as well. If you do, make sure you tag us at ToolbagsUp. Once again, that's at ToolbagsUp. This episode will be on Apple Podcast and on Spotify, as well as YouTube. The video will be up on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe and like on each one of those platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. This will be the first video on YouTube. Probably won't have any subscribers. Be the first one. Give us a like and share that with your friends. Keep an eye out on our socials for that link. That's going to be all for this one. Until next time, I'm signing off.